The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for your financial success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein, and if you'd like to reach out to me, it's 631-647-4694, or you can always visit me at themainstreetcode.com. And when we talk about code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And part of that is we deal with attorneys, accountants, and other financial advisors around the country on matters of insurance, whether it be long-term care insurance, life insurance, disability. We are experts in that area. We have a non-biased opinion. And if you have an issue or you have an advisor, and great that you have an investment advisor and an attorney and an accountant, but we help put the whole plan together and make sure everything's working in one direction. And today I'm very happy to have with me Valerie Shivers, who is a estate and elder law attorney in Sayville. Valerie, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I am an estate planning attorney. I focus on asset protection. I do a lot of elder law, and I can be reached at 631-569-4334.
And Valerie has a show, I think it's on Saturdays at
11:30 a.m.
I listen to your show quite often, and I love your show, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love your show as well.
Well, thank you. No, it's very, very, very important. A lot of the work we do, and, for those of you who came on, I think it was Tuesday night, we had some guests that listen to my show, that came to a movie night that Pat Muffett was about his life, and his wife at 53 had early onset of Alzheimer's. And it just revealed a lot of things. We talk about long-term care and preparing for that type of thing. And there's a lot of statistics regarding long-term care that I had to bring out. And Valerie, you'll certainly appreciate it. 51% of all long-term care claims are due to cognitive issues. Not, I fell down and broke my hip, right, but they're really due to cognitive issues. And then 70%, I'm going to throw out some numbers here, but these are real numbers. 70%, that's 2 out of 3 people, will need some sort of assistance or long-term care help and assistance that health insurance doesn't cover.
That's right.
And the other 30% of us will be taking care of that 70%. And it's not always at age 65, actually, the percentages are, it's only about 56% of the people that are on claim, long-term care claim, actually are over the age of 65, which I find is a startling number. But the biggest numbers, and I don't want to just get into numbers are confusing, and numbers are what they are. But I would say 40 to 50% of the people that are taking care of that person, okay, the caregiver, gives up on luxury items. 70% of those people miss work because they're taking care of the other person, which affects their family financially. 50% of them become depressed themselves. Okay, it's a big problem. The caregiving is as big a problem as having the one needing the long-term care itself. And people don't realize that. And in planning, Valerie, wouldn't you say, you need to plan for this?
Absolutely.
70% of us are going to need some sort of care. 70%. If you knew your house was going to catch fire, you had a 70% chance, wouldn't you insure it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the odds. So people say, well, long-term care insurance, that's expensive. No, what's expensive, and Valerie, you can vouch for that. How expensive is it to your clients when they need, let's say, an assisted living or a nursing home? How expensive is it?
I would say on average, so for my clients who are receiving care in the home, they can easily spend between $6,000 and $8,000 a month for care at home. That's just for, someone to help with activities of daily living, cooking, cleaning, administering medications, bathing, things like that. In an assisted living, easily $8,000 to $10,000 a month.
$8,000 to $10,000. So if I said it would cost you $5,000 for you and your spouse, or $7,000 for you and your spouse to have a policy, some sort of policy that would protect against that in 1 month, you'd make that up.
Right.
In 1 month, what you would pay in a year, you would make that up. And when you have cognitive issues, the old long-term care policies really, they really blew it, which is why the prices are higher and everything. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand. They thought the average claim would be 2 to 3 years. Do you know how long, I'm throwing this out of the blue, a cognitive event like Alzheimer's, what the average length of Alzheimer's is? Do you know?
I don't.
14 years.
Wow.
14 years. And if you have anyone in your family that has dementia or Alzheimer's, or you've dealt with anybody, they unlearn every day. Okay? There's some of them get angry, and there's rage, and there's issues. They need care. I mean, they need people. We had to deal with my father-in-law, and first off, he would go on walks by himself and end up aimlessly somewhere. And so even if you have early signs of dementia, it's something that you need to address. And it's very hard for a family member to recognize signs right away.
Right.
And the movie really put that into play because, his wife, they noticed some strange things. And the name of the book that he wrote, Pat Muffet, he's from Long Island, is called Ice Cream in the Cupboard. And this isn't an advertisement for the book per se. And then they did a movie on it. And his wife, some of the signs were they saw her drive up to the house and drive away and then drive up. And she didn't really recognize where the house was. And then, she brought home groceries and she put ice cream in the cupboard. That's why it was melting. It unlike her. I mean, she's a very organized person. And, but all these little things, and all of a sudden one day she went out for a walk with the dog and it was cold out and she didn't come back for like 4 or 5 hours. And it was raining out and she was all wet. And when she came back, it was like, well, the dog found her way back to the house and she freaked out a little bit. I couldn't find the house. I didn't know where it was. And people I know get in a car and they start driving. And it could be so dangerous, not just for them, but for other people as well. So you really need to all of a sudden now change your lifestyle, taking care of that person, and or have to hire somebody to help you. And it just has a ripple effect, not just, let's say if you have children or grown children or whatever, that you can't spend the time with them, but also a financial effect that could be on them and their generation and their children. Yeah. So really an event can take place that can ruin 4 generations.
It's so true. And what people don't realize, and a big change, I believe, that has taken place over the last few years, there was a generation of, I'm going to take care of my mom or dad. I'm one person worked, right? One was in the home raising the children. They had the time, they had the space, they were able to care for their elderly parent. That's not the case anymore. Most families are both working, so it's difficult.
Could you get a little closer to the mic?
Oh, sure.
There you go. We're having trouble hearing you. So extended families is a big deal. So my family, I have 4 brothers, and when my parents have passed, they lived in Baltimore, and I lived in Long Island, and my brother lived in Massachusetts, and my other brother there. And we had a huge issue with care coordination for my father, and I talk about that a lot about my dad, because he had disintegrated discs in his neck and his back and needed care, and it actually ruined my mother's life taking care of him. That's really what did my mom in. 7 years younger, and when we talk about caregivers, that's what led to her downfall, and she passed maybe 5 or 6 years well before him, and that's a whole nother story. But we're going to be right back. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here with Valerie Shriver. You can reach me at 631-647-4694, and listen to Valerie's show every Saturday at 11:30. It's a great show. Talks about terrific things that you need to prepare for. So we'll be right back right after this commercial. Thank you. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here with Valerie Shriver, who hosts her own show every Saturday at 11:30. Terrific show. Will you trust me?
Yes. Thank you for having me, Neil.
Oh, thank you. So we were talking before the break about long-term care. We're talking about caregivers. And we talked about a little bit about the probability of this happening, and it happens with every family. It's not uncommon. It's going to happen. And it affects 100% of us, not just 70% that are going to need the care, but 100% of it financially, emotionally, horrendous. So there is a crisis, and the crisis is getting worse and worse and worse because they're able to keep us alive longer and longer and longer. However, mentally and physically, we are machines. We are not, completely. We are going to deteriorate at some point, and outliving your income is a big issue, and not protecting your income will force you to outlive it. Now, we have solutions. The biggest solution is to plan.
Absolutely.
And to plan when?
My suggestion is long before you think you're going to need any help.
Exactly. So really, in your 40s, you should be planning all the time. First off, you have a lot of kids right now going away to college. You need a healthcare proxy for your children. This is a time you need to plan. Okay, when my daughter was in college, she ran into some health issues, and she still has some health issues. She's now 32 years old. She's in Hawaii. I'm here. But if I need to speak to a doctor, I need a healthcare proxy, or I need to go over a Medicare bill. First off, she's 6 hours different than my time, which is problematic talking to these people. Talking to her sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, but, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, they won't talk to me. She's of age. So I was at college, and I had pneumonia at one point. So they had to call my parents because they wanted to take me to a hospital. So wait a minute. Which hospital? What are you doing? So back then it wasn't as big a deal, but you need clearances.
Yeah.
So one thing, if you're sending your kid off to college right now, please reach out to Valerie. At the very minimum, start doing some planning for that child as well. Needs to do some planning. You need a healthcare program, very minimum. And you need to take care of yourself as well. So you could do both things at once.
Yes.
And I talk about my code. I talk about choice, organization, direction, and education, CODE. And I am going to replace that code with communication. That C word, communication, is important. And family communication, even though no family agrees, children, fathers, mothers, sisters, they all fight. Let's face it, that's real world. However, when you run into a crisis, you need to have other people engaged as to how they're going to handle things. And there's no better time to plan than now, and you can't wait to plan until there's a crisis. And, even when there's a crisis, there's things you can do.
This is true.
Okay? Like Medicare planning. Now, it's not just a legal thing. There are financial things that you can do as well. Let's say you don't have great you don't have a situation where you're going to need Medicaid. Now, people confuse Medicare and Medicaid, and Medicare Mike is great at talking about Medicare and Medicaid, but I have to tell you, Medicaid is health insurance for the impoverished, correct?
Correct.
And Medicare is health insurance backed by the government. So there's two different things. So Medicaid, although I don't like to prepare my clients for Medicaid, I want my clients to be wealthy and have money and be protected. However, if you're in an emergency situation and you need to go on Medicaid, or Medicaid is the best option to save your future, there are legal things that you can do, right? There's a look-back period.
Right.
Tell me how that look-back period works.
So really, as you were saying, all of this has to do with pre-planning, right? If you pre-plan, there's a lot that you can do. Obviously, the best option is to look into long-term care insurance, because in that case, you have a lot of options, right? You can move into an assisted living facility. You can receive care in your home. Those are generally what people want in life. However, there are the times when you don't have choices, right? You haven't pre-planned. We can establish irrevocable trusts for clients at an early stage, but there is a 5-year look back. What that means is any planning that you do now, any transfer of assets, are not fully protected for at least 5 years. So if you establish a trust, you transfer your property into the trust, it's not fully protected for 5 years.
Now, I know some financial secrets that a lot of financial planners don't know. One of them is the use of annuities. And you can actually move annuities from one person to another to be an income, where they can attach an income but not attach the asset.
Correct.
And in doing that, in coordination with a great estate attorney, you can protect your assets for your children and your kids. And that's one of the planning I do. And also, when we do long-term care planning, the long-term care industry has evolved into not just pure long-term care insurance. There's combination plans. They call them hybrids. That a lot of the business is going towards this hybrid thing where it's a combination of life insurance and long-term care. And I'll tell you where we use it a lot. A lot of the hybrid sales we're doing now, or positioning, is maybe you're spending money for something else, like term insurance, which is going to expire, and we reallocate those dollars. So it's not a cost. Sometimes it's a reallocation of what you're already doing and just better allocating your money to protect it. And that's what we do a lot. And then, of course, there's all kinds of trusts and all kinds of protection. But what you need to do is work in coordination with not just your attorney, not just your accountant, not just your investment guy. You need an insurance expert. And one of the things we pride ourselves in being is that quarterback, is that person. If you don't have a team together, let us help you make a team.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And when everyone's on the same page, it's so beneficial to the client.
Right. And here's what happens when everybody's not on the thing. And this happens all the time, every day, twice. I don't want to get into probate. We could talk forever about probate. But here's what happens. I call it the funnel. So I know very successful people. They bought houses, the businesses, they've got married, they got divorced, they had the best divorce lawyer, the best marriage lawyer, the best real estate broker, the best investment guy. And what happens is that everything is not titled correctly. And what happens is with the best thing and this and then they get divorced and they have children, they have different children, all things change in life. And if they don't update their plans, and all of a sudden they pass away and they got this big accumulation of stuff. They had the best of everything all along. Okay? Then everything's a mishmash and it goes to this thing called probate. That's where the attorneys really make their money. I hate to say it.
It's true.
But that's where they make their money. And one of the things that happen at probate is now the accountants and the attorneys sift through all this stuff and they have to go through a court proceeding because they don't, maybe their will is saying one thing and their other assets are saying another thing. And that's when it all gets confusing. So if they do pre-planning through proper life insurance, investments, and somebody puts it all together and they're sitting on the same page with the accountant and the attorney and you update your plans, you can avoid probate. Now, I just had a situation from a caller that just happened. So we just started to do some work. She wanted to do a will and this and that. We sat with an attorney that was actually on my program, another attorney, and she didn't quite get to do her will and everything else, but we did some annuity work and she passed away. Very sad. I'm meeting with her brother and sister next week. Because one of the things I did by placing her in annuities, which her will was all messed up and she didn't particularly like some of her relatives and this and that, and she wanted her brother to get her assets, the annuity beneficiary goes directly to her brother. Now, that's all good. One of them was an IRA, one of them's non-qualified, but there's different tax rules, even at death, so that they don't have to pay 100% of the taxes that I'm going to go with them next week, because there's specific annuity rules, there's specific rules on your IRA where you might have to pay all the tax or you can spread the tax out. I could talk a whole show on that, but Valerie knows that, and that's why you need great people to do your planning. So you're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. If you want to reach out to me, 631-647-4694, themainstreetcode.com. You can see videos and YouTube and all that good stuff. Financial calculators. And Valerie Shriver.
Yes, thank you for having me, Neil.
Yes,
you can reach
thank
me
you.
at 631-569-4334.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
All right.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.